Welcome back to the Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies that I have just seen as I am driving home from the theater, and it is finally time. We are finally here after 12 months, 75 different movies, and a lot of soul searching and compiling. We are finally at the best movies of the year. This is always a very, very difficult list to compile because what constitutes the best is, of course, a subjective thing. And I don't really have strict criteria for, boxes I'm checking or, it has to have this, it has to do that. I try my best to remain impartial and judge these films strictly on quality, but I think just doing that negates the purpose, because sometimes it's about how a movie made you feel. It's about, how it connected to you. If you're just judging it on, filmmaking, then you're not really getting the end result. It's kind of like I tell my students when they're preparing a play or something that's going to be judged. Are you doing it for an award? Are you doing it to be judged? Or are you doing it to tell a story? Are you doing it to express something? Are you doing it to connect with your audience? And how one thing connects with a person versus how it connects with another is, of course, impossible to predict, and all you can do is do your best. And all I can say is that when I look back at the year, these were the 11, yes, we have another tie, the 11 movies that really stuck with me in positive ways and that I felt were the best representations of what I had seen over the course of the year. So, agree with me, disagree with me, whatever you want to do, but for whatever it's worth, these are my top 10 best movies of 2025. Here we go!
And the winner, instead of any of the nominees, is the...
Why? She chose the piano over her insulin! You could have had both!
Dude, that movie was fucking sweet! You bet your fucking ass it was!
They don't make movies like this anymore.
Number 10. After the Hunt. So, this is the dark horse. Part of the reason why I laid out all that criteria at the beginning is in a way to kind of explain how this movie made it onto this list. Because if you go back and watch my review, and even I went and rewatched this film a second time to see if my feelings about it had altered, it's not as positive a review as the other ones we're going to see on this list. This is one that I felt the director got in his own way and made some bizarre fucking choices that seemed to be drawing attention to him. Weird fucking music and sound cues, that decision to leave his voice in saying cut on the last shot. I don't get why he did any of that stuff, because it pulled focus away from what was going on. So yeah, this one petered on the edge of this list and the good enough list. But the reason why I finally decided it deserved this number 10 slot is because of all the movies I saw this year, this is the one that I think that I thought about the most. This is the one that did a very good job at trying to represent a very, very difficult topic. It tried to broach it with some level of sensitivity, but also criticism. It tried to balance all of these stories and all of these points of view. And I don't think it got there on every front, but the fact that it tried and it made me think about the things it was talking about and the real world situations that it's reflecting, I think any movie that gets you to think is a worthwhile film. It means it's doing something right. I also would be remiss if I did not mention that I think this is the best performance I've ever seen Julia Roberts give, and I've never been a big Julia Roberts fan, but I do think this is one of her best performances. And this is the movie on this list that I doubt that I'm ever going to want to watch again. I don't think it's ever going to find its way into my physical media collection. It's just not one I think I'm going to ever want to revisit. But of all the films on this list, this is the one that I would recommend people go and see and talk about. I think this film needs to be discussed. I think the topics it raises need to be part of the dialogue, and I want to know what other people thought of this movie. And anything that makes you want to have discussions or want to think about things harder, I think that's a success. Number 9, Companion. This is the film, I said it in the review, and I still believe it. I think this is the movie that Megan could have been if Megan had any real interest in being this. The concept of not just a reflection on the emergence of AI and what that is going to mean and what that could mean as it evolves, is just because it's artificial intelligence, does that not make it intelligence? And the kid gloves we're going to have to use in order to handle this new technology. But it's also a brilliant meditation on abusive relationships. As any good science fiction film is, it delivers a really compelling and interesting story filled with wonderfully, if not all the time complex characters, then at least ones that you want to spend time with, all while giving you some insight into some real world situations. Big ups have to go to Sophie Thatcher as Iris and the amazing job she does. And I also think we really got to give it up for Jack Quaid. We've seen in the past couple years the emergence of the next generation of film star, the children of former movie stars or current movie stars like Lewis Pullman, Wyatt Russell, Mason Gooding, May Hawke, all of whom have been coming into their own and really making declarations that they are the next generation of Hollywood A-listers. And I think leading that charge has been Jack Quaid, who has really been illustrating himself as a very versatile actor. He's of course very good at that aw shucks, kind of slightly awkward leading man. But here he manages to take that persona and turn it very slowly on its head to reveal a really sick character. That commentary on those kind of characters in romantic movies, or even ones that a lot of us, myself included, often picture ourselves to be, that Ted Mosby who believe themselves to be a sweet, wonderful, good guy, but if you look at their actual actions, you see that no, these are some pretty damaged individuals who think they're owed something. And Jack really performed that transformation incredibly well. This was one of the first movies I saw this year that I went, wow, that was really great. And it stuck with me throughout the entire rest of the year. Number 8, Queen of the Ring. Now, I make no secret of the fact I am a wrestling fan, and I love that in the past couple years we've been getting movies about the world of professional wrestling that don't have that gloss on them. We had, of course, The Iron Claw a few years ago, and even further back in the early 2000s, we had The Wrestler. Because the world of professional wrestling, the lives of the people who dedicate themselves to this, the ups and downs, the very seedy underbelly of it all, is laced with human drama. But the problem is that for so long, one entity controlled the narrative. And as such, unless they had their stamp on it, a lot of these stories couldn't really be told in the proper way. And we've seen a breakout of that in recent years, and I hope we keep seeing it. Yes, Christie was a good movie, but if you're looking for a great biopic on a female athlete who broke through in a male-dominated world and became a legend, then Queen of the Ring, I think, is the better choice. Especially when you learn things like, I didn't know that for years women's wrestling was actually illegal. You couldn't actually do it or promote it. It was confined to the carnies and to the fairgrounds. I think this was a fantastic movie that told a story that most people, including hardcore lifelong wrestling fans like myself, didn't know. And big ups to Emily Bett Rickards of Arrow fame, who got bulked up and kicked so much ass in this role. She deserved a lot more recognition. This movie deserved a lot more recognition. Now, I don't like feeding conspiracy theories, but I've heard the director and other people involved with the movie say that the reason the film didn't do well is because the WWE attempted to block it. I don't know if I necessarily believe that's true, but at the same time, as I said, this is a company that wants to control every narrative of the business they're involved in. This film got virtually no press unless you watched AEW in terms of when it was being released theatrically. It has not, as far as I know, I just checked and I didn't see anything, it hasn't been released to any other streaming platform other than Fandango. There's no physical media copy of it. It just feels like, yeah, something's going on and this movie is getting buried. And that is very, very disappointing, especially when the movie is this damn good. Number 7, Superman and the Fantastic Four: First Steps. Yes, we have another tie. Yes, it is 2 superhero movies. Ironically, 2 superhero movies that came out like within a week of each other that have very similar plots. Their pluses are all kind of in the same category, and their negatives are also kind of the same category. So yeah, these 2, in my mind, are irrevocably linked. And you know, if you got to be linked together, it's good to be linked together for the positives rather than the negative. These are both, as I said in my review, these are 2 franchises that have really, really had the shit kicked out of them throughout their existence. And to actually finally, after so long, see these movies, these franchises, I should say, finally get good movies surrounding them. even if I think if all things were equal, these movies might have ended up on the good enough list, but I think just given the crowd-pleasing nature of them individually, and then combined with the fact that they finally broke through, would be like if the Buffalo Bills ever really won the Super Bowl. You know, it's like that feeling back when the Chicago Cubs finally won the World Series. You know, it's like finally they did it. Now, the Superman franchise has had a little bit of a head start. It actually has 2 good movies under its belt and a couple of decent television appearances, but every other movie has been some combination of bland, lifeless, and just downright awful, not understanding the appeal of the character. And to have this Superman burst onto the scene in the way that he did in the movie that we got, you know, this is a cliche, but things are cliche for a reason. It really was a breath of fresh air to feel Superman on the screen looking and acting and behaving as we want Superman to behave and act and look. Oh my God, after so long in the grim and brooding and washed out color palette of the Snyderverse, oh, this was like being born again. And it did something that not a lot of other properties have been able to do. Even the good Superman films and shows, they actually made Superman a compelling character, not Clark Kent. It made Superman compelling, and it did that by taking him down off his pedestal, allowing him to have human weaknesses, acknowledge those human weaknesses, and also realize that those weaknesses are part of what make us human and part of what make us strong. It was phenomenal. It was crowd-pleasing. I wasn't as big a fan of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, but everything else about this movie was exactly what we needed in a Superman movie. And was it woke? Yeah, it's fucking woke. And you know why? Because Superman is fucking woke. And then you have the Fantastic Four. Oh, the trials and tribulations of this little franchise. It seems mind-boggling that every other major Marvel property has made it to the big screen and had, if not outright successes or classics like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, the original Avengers. It at least had things that redefined the genre. You know, say what you want about the X-Men series film from Fox, but they did some things really, really right. The Fantastic Four have had no such luck. Every outing has been just ridiculous. And finally, that somebody took the time and got this right. And they get it right in such a way that you watch it and go, now what was so fucking hard about this? Why did it take us this long to get this kind of movie? And I think the main thing it did right, kind of like when they brought Spider-Man into the MCU, is they jettisoned the origin story, they jumped past it. Apparently we are going to get a prequel, which I'm fine with. And they focused in on the family aspect. They are Marvel's first family. And they made that the focal point of the film, and that is why it works so well. There's not a bad casting choice. Marvel, for my money, is still the creme de la creme of casting superhero movies. They find just the right people. But I think the character that really broke out for me in this one was Johnny Storm. Because in the past movies, it's been very difficult to get a read on him. He's always been kind of a douchebag. And they were able to strip that aspect of his character out and actually show, no, this guy, he was an astronaut. He was there for a reason. You know, he had skills and intelligence. And to make that one of the focal points of the character to illustrate how he's different from the other incarnations. Again, every actor, every character, everything worked in this. And again, brought us that crowd-pleasing, stand-up-and-cheer Fantastic Four movie we've been waiting for a long, long time. Number 6. Predator, Killer of Killers. I said when I did the Badlands entry in the Good Enough films that this wasn't even the best Predator movie we got this year. This one was. I don't know how Dan Trachtenberg has been gifted with the Midas touch when it comes to this franchise that has just been jogging in place ever since Predator 2. But damn, does he have it? Does he understand it? This is another one that when I first heard of it, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to like it. An animated Predator movie, 3 mini stories and then a kind of a big culmination at the end. I don't know. But oh my God, how fucking gorgeous was this movie in animation? How awesome were each one of these stories? I personally think the second one, the samurai one between the two brothers, that was my favorite. I love that one because there's like no dialogue. It's all visual. I also love, I said it in my review, that each one of these little mini stories could have been expanded and you could have made an entire movie just in that. But I think if you had, what makes this work would have been lost, because what makes this work is it's just no bullshit. It is no nonsense. You don't need to be told who the Predators are. You don't need to go through the same thing we go through in a lot of Predator movies of people wandering around going, what was that? What's going on? It just cut right to the chase, got right into the good stuff, and made it non-stop action. And while each of these stories were so well done and the characters so well created that they could have been their own movie, doing so, I think, would have lessened it. And then, of course, you get that awesome Battle Royale finale, and, of course, those wonderful Easter eggs at the end, which answer some questions about what happened to the people who survived the Predator attacks. Again, everything about this movie was aw shit in the best possible way. Number 5. K-pop Demon Hunters. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at this one too. This is one that I was not going to watch, but a couple people told me, no, you need to take a look at this. I think you're really gonna love it. And damn if it didn't work on me. Damn if it didn't do everything they said it was gonna do. And it had some steep mountains to climb in terms of my opinion. I'm not a fan of K-pop music. Nothing against it. I'm just not a fan of it in general. I'm not a big fan of this style of animation. I don't know how to describe what I'm talking about, but you know how it is. It's a very anime-inspired thing where characters are going along and suddenly they get big cartoony faces and their eyes get all squiggly. I'm not really a fan of that. It's just not for me. But this film leaned hard into its Buffy the Vampire Slayer roots and came up with some interesting characters, a beautiful world, and some truly spectacular music. Again, not a K-pop fan, but I went right to iTunes and downloaded the soundtrack as soon as I got done watching it. Your Idol, I think, is one of my favorite songs of the year. So, yeah, I do think that it raised some interesting questions that never got answered or they didn't devote enough time to. And I think I would have liked to have seen more about the other two girls and get a little bit more of their stories. But that's what films like this spawn sequels and prequels and tie-in comics. You know, that's how you build a franchise, is by making your audience want more out of it. And when this one was done, yeah, I wanted more, and I've gone back and watched it a couple times since. I hope they do a physical media release of it soon. So this is the dark horse. This is the surprise entrance for me, but damned if I didn't love it. Number 4, The Long Walk. I said it in the worst list when I was talking about The Running Man, that if you wanted to see this done right, if you wanted to see an adaptation, a modern day adaptation of a early Stephen King novel, then this was the film you wanted to watch. And I will be damned if this one didn't knock me on my ass. I don't know what I was really expecting from this one, but I was not expecting to be this emotionally connected and invested in these characters. I said it in the review, and I'll restate it here, that of all of the children involved in death sport movies that I've seen or are familiar with, I think this one's premise makes kind of the least sense of how this walk is in any way popular as a mass media form of entertainment. But I will say that I connected more with the characters than I did in any of those others. This is a million times better than The Hunger Games could ever hope to be in terms of character connection. And I like that this is another one of these movies that the more I've seen it, and this is another movie that made me want to go and research the source material and hear other people's takes on it. And I heard one online critic do an essay about, and I didn't even think of this, and I'm kind of ashamed I didn't think about, this is a metaphor for military service, especially military service in the time that the original book was written, around the Vietnam War. And that so much of it is tied to that mentality. And now that I know that, I can't see that in any other way. It's a movie that makes you want to learn more and experience more. And it's also a movie that makes you want to go back and rewatch it because you love the characters so much. The acting is amazing in this. The camaraderie between these guys feels real and earned. You sympathize with all of their plights, and as such, when they start to drop off, as you know inevitably they are going to do, you feel just about every death. You know, it's not breezed over like The Hunger Games. It is there, and it leaves a mark on the other characters, and it leaves a mark on you, the audience. That's hard to do, and this movie does it. And who would have thought a movie about people walking would be one of the most emotionally gripping films of the year? Number 3, Frankenstein. This is one of those that I just don't know what to say about. I don't know what I can say to add to the discussion that has been had about this movie since the minute it premiered. All I can say is to reiterate some of the things that I got out of it and that I remember covering in my original review. This has to be the most beautiful movie of the year. Visually, it has to be one of the most gorgeous looking films I have ever seen, and in typical Guillermo del Toro fashion, it's beautiful in its grotesqueness. Even the most horrific scenes are somehow composed and shot, and the colors and the sets and the costumes all come together to make it so beautiful to look at. You could cut any moment from this film and it could be a piece of art all on its own. And that's before you even get to the story and the acting, which is next level. this is a film that has had so many different incarnations, so many different directors have taken their swat at it. It's been everything from action films to meditative pieces to outright horror movies, and all of them kind of leaning on that old tired trope of, who is the real monster? And this movie cuts that bullshit and comes right down on, no, we know who the real monster is, and let's be fucking honest about it. I also have to say, and I did not mention this in the original review because I didn't realize it, I didn't know Mia Goth played both Victor's mother and Elizabeth. I did not realize that. That's amazing, and adds even another level to this. I don't know. Again, I don't know what to say. It feels like as we get this high on the list, I should have more to say about some of these movies, but I think the reason some of these films are at this level on the list is because I don't have to really say much about them. People who have seen them know their value and know their worth. Gorgeous fucking movie, and yeah, absolutely jaw-dropping. Number 2, Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Oh, sometimes you just need a life-affirming film. Sometimes you just need a movie that is a little bit odd, a little bit out there, but whose main thesis is that your life is beautiful. The little moments that define you, be they joyful or tragic, are all part of this big, beautiful journey. And we are defined by... I should rephrase that. We are built by the moments of our lives and the relationships we've had, but we're not necessarily defined by them, and that we can grow past, and that maybe understanding that the other people in our lives were human and doing the best that they could, and anything you might attribute to negativity is just them being the best that they can. Wow, this movie bombed. This was a box office disaster. It's been on a lot of lists that I've seen of biggest disappointments of the year, and I can understand why. This is a hard movie to market. It's a hard movie to kind of get across in a trailer or a sound bite what it actually is about. And even as I tried in my review, it's very, very difficult to put it together and make it sound as compelling and as fascinating as it is. And all I can say is that it is all of that and more, especially given the much more publicized, relatively speaking, film, The Life of Chuck, which was also trying to be a bit more meditative, a little bit more abstract. It was trying to tell a story in a different way, but I left that one feeling depressed, whereas this one I left feeling uplifted and joyous. And a lot of credit for that has to go to the skillful directing and writing and the people who are going to say, okay, we're going to take a chance and do this. And damn do Colin Firth, or is it Colin Farrell? It's one of the Collins. It's the Irish one. I'm sorry. I can never, when it comes to saying their names, I can never tell Colin Firth from Colin Farrell. It's Colin Farrell. It's Colin Farrell. And Margaret Robbie. Damn do they pull in amazing performances. This is the film that finally got me on board with Margot Robbie. I liked her in Barbie, but up until that point, I'd never been that impressed with her as a lot of other people had been. And this is the movie that finally kind of culminated, and I said, yeah, this young lady is a powerhouse and is going to be something, not going to be, she is something special. It's a movie that I can't adequately describe the way it made me feel, the way it still makes me feel. or that I can say I truly get everything they were doing or why they made certain visual choices. But I love the theatrical metaphor that runs throughout it. Again, that just hits me right in my breadbasket as a theatrical person. And yeah, it's the movie that I want people to go and watch and experience. And when you do, don't go in and try to analyze it. Just, like the characters, lean back and enjoy the big, bold, beautiful journey. And the number one movie of 2025 is Sinners. Yeah, it could not be anything else. It literally could not be anything else. Some years I go to the movies and I see a bunch of stuff and I come out and I'm trying to compile my lists and I'm just like, what was the best movie I saw this year? And there are other years where I know it when I see it. The minute I watch it, I go, that's it. Nothing is going to beat this, or it's this one's to lose. And holy damn, was that Sinners. I cannot remember the last time I went to a movie and was so gripped from the word go. Again, you don't need me to go through and list off everything great about this movie. Everybody and their brother has already done that. For me, this is the movie that cements Ryan Coogler as something more than a filmmaker. He is more than just a guy who makes movies. He has entered that rarefied air with Steven Spielberg, with Martin Scorsese, with Alfred Hitchcock, with Guillermo del Toro. These are master storytellers. These are true artists that elevate the medium. And I do not think that I am overselling it by stating that. Every fucking shot in this movie is perfect. The level of detail that he goes for, the level of knowledge, that's something I really respect about him as a filmmaker and just as a person, that when he goes and does these things, it doesn't matter how small that section of the movie is. He is dedicated to learning and making sure he gets it absolutely right. Great example, the Choctaw Indians who are hunting Remick. They're on screen for less than a minute, but he dealt with consultants, cultural consultants. He made sure the costumes were correct. You know, he cares that much about representation that he goes to those lengths when it would have been easy and understandable to just say, you know, well, just put them in a costume. They're on screen for a minute. Any other director might have done that. He said, no, we have to get this right. And then there's the acting. There is not a bad performance anywhere near this movie. There is not one person in this movie that is phoning it in or even slightly lower in intensity than anyone else. Yes, this is Michael B. Jordan's starring role, and bloody hell, we'll talk about Oscars here in a minute, but if he doesn't get an Oscar for this role, my question is, what the fuck do you have to do to get a fucking Oscar? So yeah, he's at the head of the table, but every other fucking actor is up at his level. The guy playing Sammy, this is his first motherfucking movie, and you would not know it. He's brilliant. Everybody is brilliant in this. The technical aspects, the choices, there are several long shots. Everybody talks about the big musical number and it's no cuts, which is valid. That's a beautiful moment. But even in smaller moments, like just going from one shop across the street, going into another one, just to kind of give us this feeling of the community that is formed here, it's all so perfect. As of right now, at the time I'm recording this, the Oscar nominations have just come out, and this movie has broken the record for the most Oscar nominations ever. I don't put a lot of faith in the Oscars anymore, but what concerns me is, if it was up to me, this movie would win everything. Every Oscar, and it would win the ones it's not nominated for. You know, it would win Best Animated Picture. And I truly believe Michael B. Jordan, Ryan Coogler, and the movie itself deserve to all walk away. Are they going to? I don't know. I'm concerned as I look at the other nominees that the Academy is going to lean more on more traditional Oscar fare. I have a feeling Hamnet, which I haven't seen and want to, but I have a feeling that's probably going to maybe be the dark horse and might steal it. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping for a Shape of Water size upset, and that we really get this film up there, because not only is this a great film culturally, it is everything I think a Best Picture of the Year should be. It's great to look at, it's entertaining as hell, but there's so much more it says about who we are as a people, what it says about the people it is actually about, the culture that is on display. There's just so much that make this the best movie of the year, and whether or not it actually wins that honor at the Oscars, I'm sure this is a huge consolation to them, but it is definitely my number one movie of the year. Okay, there you have it. There you have it. That is the final best of top 10 list for the year, and what a year it was. Generally speaking, I think this was a pretty good year at the movies. There were some colossal duds, but there were a lot of films that I saw, I enjoyed. I had more fun watching movies this year than I have in a while. Coming up with some of these lists was not easy, and I'm hoping that trend continues. I'm looking forward to some of the stuff coming out this year. And yeah, so thank you for coming along with me. Thanks for being here as I went through not only this rebirth of Drive Home Reviews, but I myself went through some pretty hefty life changes and have come out the other side. I'm looking forward to what the new year brings. I'm looking forward to new movies, new experiences, and I'm looking forward to talking them all over with you guys. So thanks for listening. Thank you for coming along, whether it's on a podcast form or you watch these on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And next time we meet, we're going to be talking about some new movies. We're out of the past and we're into the present. Let's get on with 2026. So thanks for coming along. Thanks for joining me. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.